Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of our Raspberry Pi M&M Web API series. Today we're going to get the address, the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, SSH into the Pi, and then install the demo files. And so to get started, we need to find that IP address, and a lot of people can just log in into their router and find the IP address from there, assuming you've already taken the SD card from our last video, plugged it in, and plugged the Ethernet into the Raspberry Pi and connected it to the network. There's another tool you can use though called Nmap, and what we're going to use today is a Windows equivalent of that. It's called ZenMap. So we're going to go ahead and download ZenMap, and once you get that installed, you can pull it up and it's going to look something like this. And so in this target area, what we'll need to do is put our router's network address. So in my case, it's going to be 192.168.0.1. And then we're going to put the subnet, which by default is probably going to be 24. And then we'll click scan. And what this is going to do is going to look at every port available within that subnet and see, hey, is there anything that exists? And so we'll be able to find, based on port 22, where our Raspberry Pi is actually located. So there's going to be different devices on our network. And I'm going to stop it right here because I know that our Raspberry Pi is on port 22. And I also know that most of my other devices are lower IP numbers. So this .63, that actually is most likely going to be our Raspberry Pi. So with that information, we're going to open up our terminal. And we'll go and cancel this. So open up our terminal, and we're going to SSH into it. Now, to SSH into the Pi, it's pretty simple. You just type SSH, and then by default, the username is Pi at the IP address that we just found a second ago, which is 192.168.0.63. Now, by default, the password is going to be Raspberry. So we type that in, and boom, we're in. All right, now that we're SSH into the Pi, we're just going to navigate into our documents directory, and we're going to do that by doing cd documents. We're going to make a new directory, which is mkdir. And we're just going to call it test2. We're going to go into that directory. And now we're going to clone our GitHub demo repo. And so to do that, we're going to type git clone, and then we're going to grab the URL, which is https://github.com/kcdeerking/mnmwebapi.git. And what this is going to do is going to pull that repo into this directory. If we type ls, we can see that it exists there. We can navigate into it and see that we have our folders. So that concludes section 1 of the initial hardware setup for the Raspberry Pi. In the next section, we're going to start looking at actually building out the web API, and then we're going to round it out with the third section, combining those two parts, taking the hardware aspect and then the actual software API aspect, combining them and actually being able to call that from the Raspberry Pi.